really happy to have you on the show. I'm a big fan, and this is the first time I've had you on, so I'm real excited about this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I saw the post you made on Facebook. That was very, very nice.
Oh, you're welcome. When I get a chance to promote, the music that I love, and get a chance to share things for you guys, and just to help keep it alive, it means the world. We got to all work together.
No, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, sadly, it is a lot of the work is actually almost keeping this great music alive, and it shouldn't be that way. But everything goes in cycles, trends come and go, and this and that. Luckily, 40 some years after this kind of music started, it's still doing pretty well. A lot of the old legends are still filling out arenas, so it's not gone by any means.
That says a lot to the not only the quality of music, but the quality of the people and the work that that you and the guys like that put in, to making this happen. It's
think,
amazing.
And it's a good word. It's a good key word, because quality in songwriting and production and performance is usually pretty timeless, which is why Beatles and Elvis and everyone they're still really big, and for every new generation. I think 50 years from now, kids are still gonna love, Hold the Line or Eye of the Tiger or, Don't Stop Believing and all this. These songs will never go away. I absolutely believe that.
That's right, and this kind of leads into the new album, obviously Reset, October 11th, which is coming up faster than we think.
It's exactly 1 month away. It's September 11th.
That's right.
I mean, today it's. I need to send a little extra love to all my friends in America. It's September 11th is one of those days that I think maybe more than any other day in my life, like, really killed a large part of my soul. I mean, I saw it happen here in Sweden live on TV. I for some reason turned CNN on right after the first plane had hit, where people were still talking. We don't know if it was just a small plane. Nobody knew what it was. And I saw the second plane live on TV. And the whole world just stood still. And to this day, it's one of the saddest days in modern history, for sure. So lots and lots of love to all the people in America, for this day. So
I second that, and I agree. I mean, it was it changed history, obviously, and we all know that. And it was, you still feel the effects today for how bad that tragedy was. It really was.
And globally, which is the purpose of these horrible terrorists, that, when they do stuff like this is why it's so brutal to get to an airport and go through security and all of this. Before all of this, it was just you came there and you walked through and everyone was like, hey, high five, and everything was good. Everything is worse because of these people, which is their whole end game of all the shit they do. So it sucks.
That's right.
So luckily, we have good music, positive feelings, and again, we're reset. That's actually the title of the album. It's about resetting the world and music and a lot of things. The reason for the title. So yeah.
And this album, listening to it, obviously the sixth album, and it's in my opinion, it's the best of what you put together. I think it encompasses everything, with the previous five, but I think it took it another step further. I think the emotion is the part that I feel the most as a listener. So tell us about this, Tommy, and how all this came together, because it's an amazing project.
Well, it makes me extremely happy to hear you feel that way and the way you explain it, because in one question, you bring everything that I thought about and felt about making this album. Because the first album that was released in 2001, but it was recorded, I started it in 1991 with all the Toto guys as my backing band. And those songs that I started with, I wrote in 88, 89, and 90, meaning I was 22, 23 years old, and they were written in the 80s. And they were written for a band that fell apart. I took my music, I got the deal with my friends in Toto. We went and made this album. So I was a pretty young dude back then. I'm 56 now, so it's a lot of years later. So my idea for doing the first album was always, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I get to have Toto as my backing band, and things changed, and I spent 10 years making that album. I managed to get all the Toto singers. I got David Foster, I got Fee Waybill from the Tubes, I got every great musician, everything I ever wanted to work with on one album, and I spent 10 years doing it. So when it came out, I was like, I made it, I did it, it's out, it did really well. And then the record label said, so when are you ready to do the next one? I'm like, what are you talking about? This was a once in a, I even said in all the interviews, this was a once in a lifetime. And the guy at the label said, that's kind of stupid of you, because right now you put your name on the global map with something that everyone's talking about. Because when I did that album, almost no one had done all-star albums like this. It even became a thing where a lot of people said, I want to do like that Radioactive project. I want to bring, like, is it allowed to bring in so many of your favorite people? These days, everyone's doing it all the time. But back then, it was like almost the first one to do it. So it became a thing. And I was like, oh, I never thought about doing a follow-up. So starting that one in 2002, I think I started, it came up to 2003. Again, I was 15 years later almost into songwriting and a different person. So that became a little rockier version of what I wanted to be. And then 2005, I did the third one. Those three first albums stayed sort of in that early Radioactive sound. After that, it was a gap for 10 years because they launched my career in new ways. I started doing a lot of work, producing, even touring, traveling, and more and stuff. So when it was time to do the fourth one, I kind of started to go in a little new direction, even though the core sound is always there. But after that, it's been sort of moving along with who I am more as a grown-up. So when I did the last album, the fifth one, I came from an angle of almost AC/DC kind of rock, more classic, sort of mix of AC/DC, Van Halen, more classic rock than melodic rock. So that's where I lived. So when I made it and I loved it, and I still think that Written in the Scars on the last album is probably the best song I've ever done. I started to see a lot of reviews and feedback from friends and fans saying, I really like the new album, but I do miss the sound of that, like the first Radioactive albums. And your first reaction is like, really? Like, you almost get a little annoyed. Like, but this is where I am today. But in the process of this, I got curious. I'm like, I haven't really listened to my first albums in so many years, because since it's not a touring band, I don't listen to my own work very much. When it's done, I usually just put it away and I'm on to the next thing. So I went back and listened to it and felt, it's been like more than 30-year process since the start to this. Something just said to me, I want to get back to that sound. And I heard it in my head, and I felt like it is the time to like close this cycle. And song ideas just started coming, and it felt great. So I first contacted Jim G, who sang the first single, The Sentimental. I said,
great song.
I need you to be involved again, because we've stayed friends over the years. And I said, and I actually want you to do, like, if possible, I want you to do half the album, and I'm gonna convince Jeff Porcaro to do the other half. I maybe want 2, maybe 3 singers to get more of a band sound instead of having 8, 9 singers where every song is like from a compilation album. So right. Jim said, well, he's always like, I don't know, we're busy with Alien and this. And I sent him a couple of my ideas, and he went, this is actually really good. Like, I'm telling you, we should do this. So he said, okay, let's do this. And the same thing happened with Jeff Porcaro. So me going back was not a coincidence. It was on purpose, but it felt right. And about a year and a half ago, my mentor and one of my best friends, Matt Lang, gave me the song Reset, which he just sent me this MP3. And it was basically just a little pop drum, some synth pads, and him singing. And I said, wow, it's a beautiful song. And I'm like, what is it? And he goes, it's just a song. With Matt, it's not like, here's a song, do whatever you want. Or maybe he just gives it to you, and it's up to you to figure out what the purpose might be of the song. So it was sitting there thinking maybe I should use it for some other artist. And then when I was into doing this, I listened to that one again and went, wait a minute, I hear how I should do this. So I did the whole production around his little MP3, and I actually got the files from his engineer, and I built a track and I sent it to Matt, and he absolutely loved it. So I'm like, wow, okay. And since I did a song on the last album with Matt as well, where Robbie McAuley sang, and their voices sort of sound similar, I was like, I contacted Rob and said, you got to do this one as well. And he said, sure, no problem. So it came together very organically. It just happened in the right way. And when I was doing the titles for this album, I had, as always, 20 different ideas, and did artwork in that direction or artwork in that direction, and did a version that was close to the science fiction version of the first album. It just hit me like, album should be called Reset, because I'm resetting my radioactive sound, and the song is about resetting the world. So yes, your question is like all of these answers in one question. It is on purpose, and it was a very decided goal to do this, and so it makes me really happy that you like it.
It's really cool to hear how you put that together, the background, the story, and how Mutt came in, and obviously Robin McAuley, one of my favorite vocalists, and he's been on the show multiple times. A great guy,
fantastic human, and sings as good as he ever did. I mean, there's no difference. He sounds like he's 22 still,
right?
Which bothers a lot of other singers, but that's a different story.
That's right. When I look at this, it's as advertised, and I think of, when you said Sentimental, obviously the opening track with Jim, and it's melodic as expected, but it's different in how it flows, and that's what I like about it. Like Shame on You, Shame on Me, is a little faster and then heavier with, excuse me, when the lights go down. And I love Reset with Robin. I think it does a fantastic track. Tell us about, how the songs came together. I mean, because I love how seamlessly all this sounds, even though there's some variations. It's a honestly, Tommy, it's a great listen all the way through. It's such a good album.
I love it. Well, I mean, again, you're listening with the correct ears, and me. I come from the generation where we bought albums and we locked the room and said, "Don't disturb me for a week." And we spent 3 days
exactly.
the first side change. And for me, an album is like watching a great movie. And if a movie starts with a couple of people inside of a room talking, and they talk for the whole movie, it will take a Pink Floydish level of brilliance, a Peter Gabriel level of brilliance, to make it interesting enough to listen to a couple of people in just that room. For me, I love movies that start in that room, but after a short while, they all of a sudden go into the next part and the next part, and it constantly goes, and it goes up and down and creates all of these emotions. So when I create albums, I first have to find the sound when it's for myself or even artists that I produce. I need to find the ingredients that we're going to use to cook the meal with. As soon as we know what it is we're eating, if it's a sushi dinner or a burger dinner, or if it's Italian pasta, we need to know which direction we're going with it. Once we know that, ideas start coming. And when I have the first 3-4 ideas that I feel are really good for, and it happens pretty fast for me, I start looking at it. Okay, I have one really fast one, a couple of mid-tempo, and one that's maybe a little out there in a cool way. It's got a different beat that makes it stand out. So for me, it's like, okay, so I have these, and I need 2 more really up-tempo, and I need a ballad and maybe a half ballad. So for me, it's like building this puzzle and this picture where I've always hated albums with 10 songs where every song is great, but they're sort of in the same key and the same tempo.
Right.
So it feels like the same song is starting over all the time with the same drums, guitar, bass, and vocals, and it's just the same feeling, no matter how great the songs are. Growing up as a Toto fan, they would do a jazz song with Miles Davis, and then they would go into a reggae rock song, and they would do a heavy rock song, and it would be a soul song into a powerful 80s ballad. You would be all over the map, but the production and the vocals and everything held it all together, like
Right.
in a great movie. And that's how I kind of view making albums. You need to capture people from the first song and then keep them on the journey until the end, if they are the kind of people who dig listening to the whole album. And
Right.
my biggest investment that I've done in my whole life is spending the last 30, 35 years like really studying the craft of songwriting. I've spent enormous time. I've been blessed that I got to work 12 years with Matt Lang, with Bob Estrin and Alice Cooper and Desmond Child and Andreas Carlson and the Toto guys and all of these. But I also went to I went to LA 4, 5, 6 times every year, and even Nashville and New York. I wrote with Burt Bacharach and Carol Bass Sager. I mean the legends of the best, and to write great music. But I was constantly studying what is the difference between the writing and what is the craft, what is the art behind writing. And for me, it's easy to come up with a riff that sounds pretty cool.
Right.
I always try to avoid the cliche version of where you go from that riff. Like, because most songs, if I hear a song, I can usually in my head sing where the melody and the chord is gonna go. I can almost grab a guitar and play along to any song. But it's the songs where you go, ooh, whoa, 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 what happened there? We have to stop and like figure it out. Right. Those are the songs. So I try to make it easy to listen to, but deep enough in the craft where the layers will keep you interested for a longer time. So that it is a true art, and it's something I've spent my whole life doing and that I never get tired of. It's the craft of songwriting.
And I think it stands out so well in this and in these albums. And when I talk about, and you talk about that art, you know, I go to the video for Sentimental. And I think when you watch that video, and I love kind of like how it ties that, you know, the transition of you and then Jim and how it takes you through that life experience. Tell us about that, because that video, and it kind of goes in with the, you know, the press release too, that you talk about the art form and how much you love doing that. Tell us about that video, because I think it's an amazing piece.
I love it. Well, yeah, and I knew making that video that it was gonna get so mixed in the feedback and the reviews, which is fine. I laugh about it because first of all, it's just a video. It's not like I'm trying to be Steven Spielberg or anything. It's
right.
I knew I was, because I've been really into making artwork. I come from a family that's really famous for art in many ways, going back generations. I have really famous people, and even my uncle is a world famous poet and painter, having done artwork for legendary albums by jazz artists like Brecker Brothers and stuff like this. So it's in the family. I've always been interested in it, but the music became too big. But photography and artwork and stuff. So for me, it's easier to create digital art, which is why I got interested in the AI world early, because AI is basically just a tool where if I have an image in my head, I can make it look better by learning how to write the code, the prompt for AI. It will help me because I can't paint it that good. So I come from that world, and doing this video, the beautiful side of the story that I would say maybe half of the people got is that you see both me and Jim morphing from young age to old age. And the first time Jim sings inside of that bubble, there's a newborn baby underneath him. And in the last frame of him, the bubble flies over a cemetery. it's just the story of life. It's
Right.
a version of the story of life. And it even says, I even put it like, who are we really? Like the whole story of life. And that was the idea of it. The funny thing is that it's sort of beautiful when you think of it in that sense. But I also put Jim inside of a bubble. And so every time he calls now, I call him Bubble Boy. Because he's gonna be known as Bubble Boy for the rest of his life. He kind of makes it, so it's fine. But when I made the video, I was like, this is either a pretty cool video or it's just really crappy. And a lot of these negative people are like, oh, I hate AI. Oh, this looks like a kid. And I'm like, I couldn't care less. It's just a video for a melodic song. But on the second video that's coming out tomorrow, Shame on You, Shame on Me, all of these programs, right the day after I finished Sentimental, had a huge upgrade, which made it possible for me in one program to create images exactly the way I want. In the first one, I couldn't do an image and then animate it. I had to do an animation, which was sort of a compromise in some of the ways all along. But now I could actually do, which people hopefully will see tomorrow. I got inspired by the old AHA song, Take On Me, which was hand-drawn and painted in the 80s, right, which cost $1 million to do back then. But I got this idea from the story that Jeff Porcaro wrote for this song, about this couple that's breaking up and stuff. So I created all of these stick figures, these pencil drawings in one program, and they look like really like you did it for real. But because I created them exactly the way I wanted to, I could animate them the way I wanted them to. And so I think the second video came out really cool. But I love the idea of the whole concept, like the whole picture of the music combined with the artwork in every detail. And Giulio, who works at Frontiers, is really, really good. So every time I do this, he loves the artwork as well. So we work well on the final little fixing and stuff. So I would say it's almost as big of a passion as doing the music to do the artwork and videos. It's something that I really like, but that is more like a really fun hobby. But the artwork side, I do a lot of artwork for other artists and bands, and I love that side. So it's the whole package. And also that's how I grew up, being a Kiss fan. It was as much about the cover and the stuff inside and all of it. And I come from that school. So.
That's right, and it comes as a package. It's like opening a gift every time with that smell and looking at the pictures and everything. And that art that you talk about, the way it ties in with this new album, and I think it says so much, because it's like you said, it's a journey, it's a story, and it takes you through all those steps and all those pieces tie in together. And what I wanted to ask you is, what's it like to work with all of these different guys? I mean, because this ties together, so seamlessly. Obviously, Robin McAuley and Jeff Porcaro and Jim. Tell us about that, because it seems like it takes, it's a lot of effort. You don't have the guys in a studio, but tell us about the process and how this great album came together.
And the fact that I was rarely able on my own albums to be in the same studio, except for the first one where we at least recorded all the basic tracks in Los Angeles, me with the Toto guys. It's always been, even back then when before internet, where we had to send the tapes from a studio with FedEx or UPS somewhere in the world, and somebody had to record it in some studio, and whatever came back is what you had to work with. And that could be amazing if you were lucky with these people, or it could be okay. And the problem is that you had to go with okay, because you couldn't send it back and have them redo stuff, which is a dilemma. It's at least easier these days with the internet, because you can send them a track and they do it, and you get everything, and you put it together, you go like, I really love it, but could you fix this? Sure, no problem. It happens to us all the time. So it is easier. Plus, in my progress to become a better songwriter, I've taken charge of the other 50% that I never did enough in my career. I was always focused on the music because I'm not a singer. So I always put together music and I always gave it to the singers or maybe a co-writer. And I was always hoping that they would do a good enough job with melodies and lyrics. And sometimes it worked great. A lot of times it didn't. And that feeling grew over the years. Like I hated, I heard in my head what it should be like. So I took charge of that, especially for this album. I said to all the singers, I'm writing this album. I'm not giving away the melodies and lyrics. I'm at the point with the last albums I've done now, I do everything. The only one who said, well, Tommy, that's not the way you and I work. It's Jeff Porcaro. And I said, I know, and you're the only one I do trust. Because Jeff Porcaro is, again, one of the brilliant songwriters for so many years. And we create magic together. And he understands. If I change one note in a little chord, he understands it. And there's a song on this album called Sweet Little Tina. And when I sent him the music, he called me up and he said, wow, you wrote an R&B song. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's a cool rock song. He goes, no, that's an R&B song. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he pointed at certain things. I went, oh, you're right. And he goes, I want to write a song about Tina Turner, who sadly passed not that long ago. And I'm like, oh, I like that idea.
Right.
So Sweet Little Tina is a very beautiful song about Tina Turner. He added the soulful flavor to a rock song, which is what made Toto so good. They added that they were, white guys from the valley with a very black sound, the soulful groove and everything. Right. And I always love that. And Jeff has all of that in him. So it's gotten to a point where it's easier to work with singers and for me to show them exactly what it is that I want and know how much room to give them, because I don't want to tell people you have to do it exactly like this. This is what I'm going for, but add your flavor to it, because I cannot sing like Robin McAuley, and he will listen to what Mutt did, which is brilliant. So I know he will capture whatever Mutt did and add his flavor, and it's perfection. Right. Jeff did his, and I said the same to Jim. You hear everything that I'm going for. He's also a brilliant songwriter. So he goes, I hear exactly what it is, but I said, but you need to add, Jim to it, not do it note by note exactly what I did. So right. it is easier, and then, having done this for 40 years, on insane amounts of albums with almost every artist that I ever had as an idol from a young age, it's really hard to get kind of starstruck. You get excited. That's the thing, it's like, I saw a poster of Kiss in 1985 and became the biggest fan in the world. And Ace Frehley was my first guitar hero, the reason I play guitar. So to end up co-writing a song on his last album that went #1 on Billboard is pretty cool. And all my walls in my room from the age of 7 were posters of Kiss, Alice Cooper, and Deep Purple. And there's Alice Cooper Gold album, and there's a Deep Purple. I have 5 gold albums with Deep Purple, and I have with Paul Stanley, and I have a Billboard award. So I changed my idol posters to gold records with these people. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not extremely humble about that fact. Because even my daughter says, you have the weirdest stuff on the walls. And I'm like, they're basically just, metallic diplomas of some work that did better than other. It's basically what it is, but it's a proof that it's working. So you kind of don't care that much anymore. I don't, if they're famous or not. But at the same time, there's a lot of pride and joy in a very humble way of the fact that I got to work with all of these people. And Mutt Lange is one of my closest friends in life. We talk every week. We almost never talk about music. And for 12 years, we worked on a lot of stuff, and we still do on some because he's retired. But when you have people like him and Bob Ezrin and Alice Cooper and Desmond Child, who's a very good friend.
Brilliant.
brilliant people. I mean, people on a level that most people will ever not even get close to. I'm not the same person because of these people. I'm different in the way that I view life, in how I play and how I write and how I produce and how I make. And that is the greatest luxury of all, to just be around greatness and know that in the room with these people, I'm actually able to be part of what they do on the correct level. And it's most people will never ever care about people like me, because it's my choice to be a behind the scenes guy. I decided that early on, that I don't want to be a guitar hero rock star. It means nothing. It absolutely means nothing, that side of it. It's the artist that I care about, and being a good dad. That's the main thing in life.
That's great. That's great too. You know, and when you look at that behind the scenes type thing, and I think your brilliance shines through in so many ways, you know, just listening to this. And I wanted to bring up the part that, you know, that I know I'm sure a lot of people don't speak about it. They speak about the music and obviously the, you know, the AOR greatness. But I wanted to talk about you as a musician, you know, the guitar playing in this and the way the flavor, you know, hits all of these tracks. Tell us about that, because I think that part, when people listen to this record, they're really going to hear that, you as a musician, and say, wow, this guy, you know, he has so much to offer here. But that piece right there, tell us about the musical side of this and the pieces that you put into it.
Well, it makes me extremely happy to hear you say that. And it's maybe when I was younger, there was a kind of youthful bitterness for a while, that maybe I wanted to be more of a guitar hero kind of person, but that was just more of the youthful kind of thinking. And it went away pretty fast, going like, what does that really mean? And it changed into this feeling of it was actually the biggest studio guitar legend of all time was a guy named Tommy Denander. He was part of the Wrecking Crew, the original guys from the 50s, 60s, 70s that played on every album that was ever made. They did like 97% of every album in California for like 40 years. Everything anyone's ever heard, including every movie and TV series and everything. The godfather of all studio players. And I knew him for a little while. And he told me this story about this young kid in town, and on their first session, and he acted very much like, oh, I'm so fucking good and I'm all of this and blah blah blah, and he did some stupid mistakes, and Tommy like really took him aside and tore him a new one and said, this is not the work we do. If you see that there's a mistake on your paper, you don't call the leader in front of 100 people with an orchestra and everything, go, oh, check this out, oh, look what I did. You know, because you're disturbing a $10,000 an hour session with people. What you do is you correct the mistake, you play what you're supposed to do, you pack up your stuff, and you wave, say thank you for today. And on the way out, you pat yourself on the shoulder and go, I'm good at what I do. And that's something that stuck with me. Like,
that's right.
You don't have to TikTok and Facebook everything you do to the world. There's so much of the stuff that I do for big artists that they get the credit for because they are the big artists. But I can walk home and go like, I'm really good at what I do. And people will never know that it was actually me who did all of that, which is fine, because if it was all the fame and all of that, I would have treated my career differently. Right. So my guitar playing is sort of part of that thinking. I've played guitar for 51 years. I started when I was 5. So it's half a century of doing it, 40 years full time on some 10, 12,000 recordings, sessions for all things I've ever done. So it's, if you do something for that long, that much, combined with whatever talent you're born with, and being drug-free, I don't smoke, I don't do anything. I mean, I'm a very focused person. So in the sense of loving the art of it, I chase every tiny nuance of every note, and I'm an arranger. So when I hear a song from as a studio musician, I know what to play and what not to play, and how to layer the sounds and build it into something. So in some ways, I come from the same school as Lukather would do in Toto as a studio musician, or Dan Huff did in Giant, or Michael Landau did in certain bands that he was in. Like the studio guys, even Tim Pierce from the early work, like on Runaway with Bon Jovi, or with Rick Springfield, he's a studio musician in the way we arrange things, and it usually makes the stuff we do fit in. The key difference between a lot of like studio guys or professional guitar players, they will play the parts perfect, and it just sounds, it's there, and you don't notice it more than, yeah, it sounds good. But I also grew up with Eddie Van Halen and Gary Moore, and people that are, and like Mark Knopfler, like unique players. So a lot of the magic in guitar playing comes from what you don't play and the imperfections. It's the thing that stands out inside of what feels good that makes, it's like putting weird spices in food that you don't expect, and people go, oh, that's weird, but I kind of like it. Like, you know, it has to, and I come from that school. I don't chase perfection when it comes to solos. I chase emotions, because if I really felt it, usually other people feel it. It's not always perfect, but when I do like rhythm guitars and arranging, I come from the Mutt Lange school, and I'm beyond proud of the fact that he once said to me, Tommy, you're the only guitar player I've ever let do his guitars on his own and send to me, and I approve them. Because everyone that's worked with him knows that it's hour after hour after days and days and days, even the greatest ones. But for some reason, I'm capable of delivering stuff where he goes, okay, good, perfect. And so I mean, a bigger pat on your own shoulder you can never get. So, but most people will never understand it. So therefore I love that kind of question, and I do get a lot of beautiful feedback. But I'm in that weird zone where because I'm not on the cover of Guitar Player magazine, and I'm not out there trying to be that kind of famous guitar player. I'm always that amazing underdog, like, where have you been? Like,
that's
this is the best. I mean, how cannot people know about you? And I'm like, some do actually, if you look at what I've done. And then when they see the 3,000 albums and all this, they're like, how can I have missed it? So it's a more of a joy than an annoyment in the fact that, but I chose this life, so I'm actually pretty happy about it. So, but I take serious pride in the guitar, because that is my voice. I can't sing, even though I do sing half of the song on this album for the first time in 40 years, which took a lot of work to do. But singing it, I do it through the guitar, and so it means a lot to me, you know, in that sense.
I love when you talk about the arrangements too, and how all this, you know, goes together, and how it's seamless, and it really, for fans that are listening in here, this album isn't just a listen, you know, for the music. It's brilliance in art. That's the best way I could put it, because I listened through, and there was a lot of times where I was like, wow, I need to listen to this again, because it's so emotional, Tommy. It's really a great album. I honestly have to tell you that. It really is.
Wow. Well, it makes me extremely happy, because I've always had this rule of thumb. I go into this bubble of this room where I'm in my own space, and I create the things that if it doesn't move me or touch me when I do it, it's not there yet. It needs to be on a level where I enjoy it. And when it's all done, and it feels, and I take a step back, and I go like, okay, I guess I'm done, and I guess I send it to the label. It's no longer my baby. It belongs to everyone else. But only still after 4 years, at that point, will I go, oh, that's true. Other people are gonna hear it. Like, I constantly keep because I'm in the bubble of creation, and time and everything just goes away. And I think you cannot fake being sincere in art. The word art comes from like touching people, like affecting people. And it doesn't matter how you do it, but if people feel something from what you're doing, it's art, no matter what kind of education or age or whatever it is. If you touch people, if something happens to them, well, it's art, you know.
That's right. It's the ultimate art form, in my opinion. It touches so many souls, and you know, you're not just looking at something; you're listening, looking, experiencing the whole thing. And
it does, music. And of all ages, and that is also something that I've noticed. Like, the more sincere and true I am in the way that I create music, I've had feedback from people going like, my toddlers cannot stop listening. As soon as you put your guitar music on, they just go calm. And my daughter reacts to stuff, and even like my grandparents were like, whoa, you know. So that's when I realized how I feel is something that I can capture if I do it in a true way in the studio. You can actually bottle emotions and give it away. And when I figured that out, then I understood what music was about. So if I don't feel it, how can I expect somebody else to feel it? It just doesn't work that way.
That's right. Very well put. And you talked a little bit ago about all the projects that you worked on. You know, there's so many, and you look back. But I wanted to talk about the Legends Voices of Rock.
Yeah.
Which I think is, you know, is really cool. And putting something together like that, obviously, you know, I look at the list here, and the ones that stand out, obviously, was a great Jimi Jamison, who I think was, I mean, amazing vocalist, survivor, and the things that guy did. But Joe Lynn Turner, Tony Martin, Graham Bonnet, I mean, that list goes on and on. Tell us about that project and working with a guy like Jimi, who I thought was, I mean, brilliant. The guy just, he was one of those ones that, you know, he touched your soul when you listened to him.
No, in every way. It started from, Bobby Kimball has been like a big brother to me since 1994, when we first started talking to each other, and we did all the Radioactive stuff, and we just, it felt like family. I knew his parents, you know, who sadly, you know, both of them passed away pretty close to each other from I think cancer stuff. So I was the guy that he called in the middle of the night crying, you know, about losing his parents. I mean, we were like family, and sadly he has dementia now, so he doesn't remember anyone anymore. But we spent decades together, including starting to tour. So I got an offer to do a big Christmas gala in Stockholm, at a huge venue. And they said, well, you know, if you can bring a cool guest from America, we'll pay good money and all this. It's a big show, and you can be part of it. And I called Bobby up. I said, isn't it time for us to start doing this? And he said, let's go. So we did a week of that. And before he came over, I was like, when you're here, we should actually finally do the tour we've been talking about. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. Right. So he was like, great. So I put together a Swedish band, and we booked another 10 days after this, and just went out and played clubs, and it just clicked. It was great. So he got back home, and we started getting more offers to do this, and it just struck me that I'm also very close friends with Fergie Fredriksson. I'm like, I wonder if they dig each other, and you know. So I spoke to both of them. Oh God, I love Bobby, I love Fergie. Maybe we should do a thing together, like we do half of the set with Ferg and half with Bobby, and all so that was the little seed that grew into, well, what if you actually had 3 singers and they do 5 songs each, the biggest hits, that's 15 songs, and then they come out and do like the biggest hit they ever did for the last 18 songs. That's a perfect set. So it started with that idea, and I already knew Bill Champlin really well, and it was like Toto in Chicago, huge in Europe and Japan and everything. So quickly became that thing. And from that idea, I started contacting the other singers, and Steve O'Jerry from Journey was one of the first, you know, and So I think the first real tour we did was actually in Japan with Bobby Fergie, Bill Champlin, and Steve Jerry. And we got a big promoter, so we played like the bigger halls, and it was a fantastic tour. So that's how it started. And then, I mean, it's a snowball effect. You have these people, and instantly it was like I contacted Jolene Turner and Graham Bonnet. I now have Rainbow and Deep Purple, you know, okay? Right. And then you get Eric Martin, you have Mr. Big, and then it was like, it just kept going. I was talking to Lou Graham, and he said yes, but he was busy in the States at the time and still suffering a little bit from health. I got Mickey Thomas, and he said, I'll absolutely do it, but we're really busy with Starship in the States. But it just, all of these singers just kept coming. And we ended up booking these tours with 4 singers. So each singer would go up and do their 4 biggest hits. So you have Bobby Kimball come up and start with Girl Goodbye. Actually, he was always on last, but it was like, you take the 4 biggest songs and you save the absolutely biggest one for last. So that's 5 songs. We're talking 20 songs in a set with the original voice, and every song is a sing-along, and the backing band was just phenomenal. So it's an unbeatable magic to start like the Baywatch song, and some people, and then you in your ears it's Jimi Jamison, or you start playing Hold the Line and it's Bobby Kimball, or I Surrender, and all of these songs, and it's the original voice. And we always laughed within the band. We said we're one person away from being a cover band, because you remove the singer. We're not a backing band. We're just another cover. Because of the singers, we're actually backing the original singers. So it was, you know, then we were fine with the letters. But we also knew that we were catching the last great years of a lot of these singers. Fergie had the cancer. It was a miracle that he got okay and he could do a couple of tours. It came back. We lost Fergie. Bobby now with dementia. He stayed through most of it. Bill Champlin had his health scare, and some singers, not a lot of them, a couple of them had enormous egos, turned out to be hard to work with. And it was an amazing run for a while, and some of the best times I've ever had. And Jimmy was by far, I would say that Bobby Kimball, Jimmy, and Jolene Turner are probably the 3 greatest voices I've been on a stage with. They are almost better live than on their best album recordings, you know, especially during these years. Jimmy became as good of a friend as Bobby became. We did a whole bunch of albums. From Radioactive, I played on his stuff, and we did other projects together. I became the band leader for him, and I'm still very, very close with his you know, his wife and daughter and everything. And he was more unique than most of them. He was a very smart guy. He was extremely funny, and just the best hang to be around. And we did a couple of tours with just Bobby and Jimmy, and they were so tight together because they knew each other for years. And same with Bill Champlin. He and Bobby go back to the 70s together. So it's like touring with the family, and at the same time they are the highest level of legacy legends. So it's just hard to top that feeling. On the bucket list, it's the biggest thing you can go like, I did that, you know. So yeah, with Jimmy, it's 10 years. I don't get it. It's 10 years since he left us, and it doesn't feel like. Same with Fergie, also 10 years. It doesn't feel like it's 10 years. It feels like it's a year and a half, 2 years ago. They are still here. I even saw some pictures I haven't seen before. It was posted from one of the shows after we did the Firefest in 2010. We did a tour in Sweden, and I saw some pictures on a website yesterday. I'm like, I haven't seen these pictures, and it's, I mean, their spirits are always here. Their voices, their sounds are always in the studio.
Right.
So, fantastic.
Yeah, you said that, and we were. This is a little side story. We were on a fishing trip. I think this was around Memorial Day weekend, and in the car we were listening to the radio, and obviously, I Can't Hold Back came on, Survivor, and I thought Vital Signs is, you know, one of my favorite albums. I mean, it's brilliant. But to hear that guy and to know that legacy lives on, it's a great thing about music is it's a history, it's a story, but it's art and it's our lives. That's the
It
best
is.
part of it.
I mean, we attach the best and the worst parts and times of our life usually to music. That's my first summer in New York in 1985. First time I was in America was first time seeing MTV and Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. So every time I see that video or hear the song, I'm in New York for the first time, 1985. And Toto
Right.
4, I remember that whole summer. I remember Kiss Destroyer. I remember exactly where I bought all of these albums. They are the soundtrack of our lives. And
That's right.
And to attach the people in memories that I wish I could somehow get the movies that I have in my head and my soul out on a screen and have people like feel the experience of being around them. I wish it was possible because again, it's memories that are irreplaceable and just amazing. The best people ever. Simple.
Right. And you could hear that in your voice. And I think that's what sets this, so high, for when people listen to it, they understand that you truly mean every little piece of this. There's a soul out there, that gets to listen to this. And it really is. It's amazing.
Well, it makes me happy. Yeah, I mean, if it's not real, I don't see a purpose in doing it. And I think that's what's kept me alive for 40 years. Even though trends come and go and COVID hits hard in the business, I have more work today than I've almost ever had. And I get it's just treating people nice and doing a good job and being truly passionate about what you do. Because if you deliver what more than people expect, they want to come back to you all the time. And the beauty of even of doing interviews is you make new friends with every new interview. There's great people all over the world, and it's just an easier way to live in the light and like look for love and light and happiness in everything you do every day. And I think we need it more today than ever on this planet, which is why the album is called Reset. We need to hit that reset button.
Yeah, we need to hit it more than we think anymore.
Yeah, totally.
It's really the truth. When you look, we talked about the reflections obviously back in your musical career. What are some of the things that really stand out to you and what are you the most proud of? Because I know you have such vast amount to look at, but is there anything that really says, wow, I'm extremely proud of this?
I think one of the coolest part is what I told you earlier, that I took all my idols, all the posters of my idols, and I turned them into gold records. Because within that story from coming from a small town north of Stockholm in a small car, I didn't grow up in LA. I didn't have all these people around me. So I had to fight through an enormous system of parents, friends, school, society, distance, odds in every way, just to get to the point where I could knock on these doors and then be allowed in and then prove that I'm worthy to be there and stay there. So that is like the biggest part, the biggest proof of like, and my grandmother said to me, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough, which is how I've lived my life. I knock on doors that scare me and I do go in, but I go in prepared. I don't stand there and go like, I don't know. I go in and I go like, I can do this. And just let me prove it to you. And there's a confidence in it. But that confidence comes from doing your homework. I'm the first guy to say, I'm not the right one for this job, or I don't have the answer for this. We can try, or you need to get somebody else. But if I do know the answer, it's a big difference between, I think I know how to do this, or I know how to do this. And that's how I try to separate what I do. I try to really learn it to the point where I hear something and I go, I know exactly how to fix this. And I've told Bob Ezrin and Alice Cooper, you're wrong. And I put my foot down and I said, both of you are completely wrong. And they're like, okay. And I said, you're missing the whole effing boat here. And I don't agree with you. And the next morning I woke up to an email from Bob going, okay, so what about this? And the song we were working on, they changed it back to what I wanted. And I went, wow, because I was sort of expecting to go like, well, your attitude isn't proper here, son. Like, but they're being professionals. They were like, okay, when somebody's that passionate about something, there's something in it. So they went back and they went, huh, he's actually right. So they went back to my idea, fixed it up, and made it even better because of their brilliance. And I was like, wow, I won this battle because I stood my ground in a proper way. But, you know, it's like knowing instead of thinking you're knowing. So it's called experience for a reason.
Right. And a level of respect that they have for you too.
Vice versa. Yeah, I'm extremely, you know, and I would say Alice Cooper is probably the proudest part of my whole journey. Of almost 15 years, we worked together on so many things, and to be around him in the way that I've had, it's just amazing. Equally with playing on Paul Stanley's Live to Win album and working with Ace, because Kiss is the whole reason I exist as a musician. If it weren't for them, I may never have started with music. So, and I not only worked with them, I got to tell them that part of it, which is the whole thing. But again, it's thousands and thousands of situations with all of these people. So trying to pick what the favorites is, it's getting to a point where I need to write 5 books and explain it in detail. So
see, that's your next step.
That's my next step.
So Tommy, how about any last words? I mean, obviously the album hits October 11th. You know, is there anything that you want to get out to the fans, let them know about this album? And
I hope they listen to this interview, because if they understand the beauty of your emotions and questions, and hopefully my answers, I hope that they get excited about listening to it, because I've so far had the kind of reaction that you're giving me from basically everyone, which is, it's the only way for me to know that it did work, because I cannot know myself. In 2 or 3 years, I'm able to listen back to this and go, huh, okay, now I get it. Like, I'm too close to it. So I just hope that people listen to it and understand the sincere passion and craft that went into making this album, and like take the time to dig into the layers. It's not just another album of, here are a couple of songs, we did it and it was fine. There's a lot of labor and deep work put into it. So I hope people dig it.
Yeah, I think it's going to do very well. I think it's a, you know, like I said, it's an amazing listen. It's a journey. It's not, you know, an album where you just put in and say, well, you know, I think it has so many moving parts, and it is going to hit so many different people too. It's not just the AOR fans. The rock fans are going to love it. You know, any genre that you listen to, it's an amazing record. It really is. Say it again.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me. It really, really does. So I'm, you know, and do it same with doing interviews like this. It just makes the day brighter, and the heart more full of love, and you know, I couldn't be more thankful. So.
And in closing, Tommy, I want to say thank you for doing what you do. I mean, you know, if it wasn't for people like you and guys like you, you know, the world would be you know, worse off. You know, I love having a chance to listen to things like this. I know it's going to change my mood. If I'm in a bad mood, it's going to bring me up. If I'm in a good mood, it takes me higher. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And
well,
that's all I got to say. Amazing.
Equally, we're all in this boat together. If not all of us share the journey like we do right now, it's pointless. You know, it's all of us doing this together that makes it great. So thank you in return for an extremely good interview, fun time, and your passion into everything. It makes it easier to feel good about doing whatever I do. So you know, I can't thank you enough. You know, right back at you.
You're welcome, man. It's so much appreciated. And Reset hits October 11th. You know, I'll tell everybody, get out there and get this. Listen to it. Spread the word, man, because it's a great album. If you like AOR, you're gonna love this one. I mean, this is beyond exceptional. It really is. Really is.
Beautiful. And we will talk for sure in 2 years when I make the next one as well. So
Oh, you have an open invite to the show, man. I appreciate what you do, and I loved having you on, and great conversation. And like I said, best of luck, Tommy. I really hope that you guys do, and you and the guys do very well on this one. Really do.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me. All the love to you, and I sincerely hope to speak to you soon again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks,
Beautiful.
Tommy. Again, best of luck.
All the best.
You too.
Ciao.